All right, guys, it is Celeb back again, here with the masterminds and probably, I guess I could say, psychos behind Doom Eternal, Hugo and Marty. We talked last year, and you were totally like chomping at the bit to say all this stuff that you wanted to say. So I'm going to start it out with a question that I asked you last year. We've seen a little bit more with this whole heaven, hell kind of aspect of this game. And this is something that I have been like totally freaking out about since the original moment of me seeing this. Now, with the Doomslayer, he is always the guy that's like, fuck everyone else. I'm doing my thing. Is that how we're going to see him in this storyline? If even if you guys can't really talk about the whole heaven and hell aspect, like, is he just going to be like, fuck what's going on between you guys, I'm doing what I need to do?
We often describe it as like there's a catastrophe going on Earth of biblical proportions. Mm-hmm. It involves heaven and hell and prophecies and scriptures, and the Doom Marine just takes a shotgun to all of it, because at the as you can see, I think from the trailer, the people who are at risk is humanity, mm-hmm. So that's about all we could say, I think, and it'll be fun for people to dive into the story and the lore if they're interested, or just blast demons. Again, it's still a Doom game. Gameplay comes first.
Totally.
But we're excited. It's there's more story, I think, and you go to cooler places, see more demons, use more mods, have more gameplay changes of scenery and stuff, and get more narrative beats and lore stuff in the first 2 levels than you do, I think, in the entire game last time.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
people are going to dig it.
So after a long period of dormancy, coming off of Doom 3, I wanted to know, what's it like with the Doom reboot behind you and it being a success and now having the opportunity to work on a sequel? What has it been like to revitalize this franchise, both for the old fans, but given the huge gap of years, bring it to a new generation of gamers that maybe hadn't grown up with Doom?
It's super rewarding. I mean, it's we have so many people, whether you've been at it a long time or a short period of time, all of us, work for id to be able to work on Doom. So to be able to reboot it the way we did with 2016 was incredibly rewarding. But it was all very much from the feelings of those original games, and it was just fantastic to be able to go back to that and find the pieces that worked and that are universal. So and then bring those forward. And I think that's why we kind of were able to capture both classic, kind of people who've loved Doom since they first played it back in 93 or 94 or whenever they played it since then. And also then it's like, just good ingredients. They work, even in Doom 2016. So that's been fantastic. And then to be able to, we went through a lot as a team as we made Doom 2016. You have a lot of defining how you're making the game, what you're making, what it means, what does Doom mean. So we answered a lot of those questions in the course of making that game, and to have a team that's as strong as we have, that has been through that together. Our leadership has gone through that together. You get to basically then approach a sequel with the idea that we can really, really swing for the fences with this one. You don't have to have all those tough, really time-consuming conversations. We kind of know what we know what it is, and so that, I think that's where, like, when you look at the way we've approached Doom Eternal and how it comes across on the screen, I think you can see a team that's really in full stride with decision making and with creative and tech. Like, everybody is really just knows kind of which way we're going with it, and it just comes across on the screen. And I think gamers really benefit because because we're more efficient than we've ever been, and making better choices than we've made, and we've listened to them as well. They've given us a lot of great feedback that we've pulled into the game. So it's just a great time, frankly, and a lot of work that went into it, and now we get to we get to really push ourselves.
Now, one question I have is, Hugo may be the person that'll end up answering this. You have this legacy, and you've been focusing on this legacy, and it's notable from beginning of 2016's Doom to now, even with all the teasers for Eternal. What's it been like bringing back the original models, but also modernizing them to the current standard?
I wish we did it originally. You know, I think it's been so much fun. I think I get a kick out of the idea that a fan in 1993 of original Doom, if he saw Doom Eternal, his head would explode. Like, because he's like, that's like the feature film version of this game that I love. You know, and that's good. That's a good thing. That's the way it should be. So, and honestly, they're just great designs. I mean, this is just great stuff we're working with. The original Mancubus is fantastic. I love the characters from Doom 2016 as well. I mean, I do think, you know, they are part of the universe now. We tend to think of the fictional reason behind why they are different is these are just like a species of Mancubus. You know what I mean? There are many different kinds of Mancubus, just like there are lots of different types of, you know, tigers and jungle cats. You know, this is just one of a species of Mancubus. So those other ones, you know, they're alive and well. But yeah, no, it's been great. I think it's great for the game. It reads better. The game is more. This is our Evil Dead 2. That's what I think. Like, Evil Dead 1 was great, right? And it had all this cool stuff in it. But like Evil Dead 2 is the full realization of the Evil Dead universe and my favorite Evil Dead.
Yeah.
So we feel like this is our Evil Dead 2, where it's like we were able to steer into everything that worked, chip away the stuff that didn't, you know, and then add in a bunch of new stuff that capitalizes on all the great things that are Doom.
That's awesome.
Okay, I have a question that's a little bit out of this realm. We're talking about Evil Dead. Evil Dead is one of my favorite movie series of all time, along with Doom. But another series of mine that's just a favorite series of mine is Mortal Kombat. I love Mortal Kombat. I love the fatalities. Me and my wife this entire weekend, if there was a time we were away from QuakeCon, we're practicing to beat a friend of ours that is a total beast at this game. So, you know, there's you know, Ash is coming to the game supposedly and stuff like that. Would you like to see the Doomslayer in a game like Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we'd love to, if it works, you know. I mean, like that's always like the fan service type of stuff. I think the Doomslayer. I'm biased, but I think the Doomslayer would kill everything in every other game ever. So, you know, I don't know from a balance perspective if it will work out so well, but yeah, I mean the fan in all of us would love to see that kind of stuff, whether it's you know, that or Super Smash Bros. Or anything like that. You know, you'd love to see that kind of stuff. But
to kind of branch from that, you know, talking of games outside, earlier at the panel, y'all were talking about like classic games. You were talking about GoldenEye and some more. With the classic titles that just launched, which was a really big, huge hit with fans. I mean, I purchased it like right when I got back to the hotel. Like Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom 3, all on my PS4 now. Is that something that y'all have thought about doing since, like, you know, way back? Or is it just like, it was kind of like, you know what, we're just going to do this because we know fans want it?
I mean, it's a pretty good fit for the 25th anniversary to bring them onto. You know, we've done bits of it here and there. The Doom games have been on, you know, on different platforms. Obviously, I mean, Doom's part of the nostalgia of it is that it's been on just about every platform there is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was a great time with the 25th anniversary to really modernize, you know, them as far as being on just about every console possible.
Yeah.
We love them still. Again, we use them as source material, so we know how cool they are. I can't remember who said it on the panel yesterday. You know, I mean, the pixel art games are kind of making a comeback to a certain extent. So they're as relevant now as ever. They're always fun. I mean, the fun of them is transcendent, honestly. So yeah, I think we saw the anniversary coming and said this is going to be a really fun year, a great year for Doom. And I also think that the kind of, frankly, I'm very much about not just. I've been at it a long time. I love the history of the company. I love the legacy. I don't want us to just live in the legacy.
Yeah.
I'm really very cognizant about not having us not just live in the past.
Yeah.
We have to be forward thinking. You know, one of our mottos at the studio is lead, don't follow. So we apply that to everything we're doing going forward. So I think the fact that Doom 2016 came out and really did kind of reboot the franchise, I think re-releasing these games without that kind of success around 2016 and everybody kind of having that cool feeling about Doom right now, I don't know if it would have came off as well, but I think it's just a perfect time with, you know, the brand feels modern and fresh and new and cool, and at the same time we can still, you know, look back at the legacy and bring those old games back, and it just works with the anniversary.
Awesome, man.
So with this game, and I'm not going to ask for any specifics here, of course, but you're making a whole Doom universe, bringing in new locations that haven't been a part of the lore, you know, beyond just the UAC, Hell, and Earth. So I just want to ask, like, in general, what has it been like, and what has been like your team's philosophy behind expanding this universe, you know, that you've been given charge of, and balancing it with what the lore has been and bringing in new things, new places to it?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Just like expanding the Doom universe, like in general, you know, since I know you might not be able to specifically talk about locations you haven't revealed yet, but like just in general, what has it been like to take the classic lore and expand it?
I think it's been good, good for the game. You know, the goal is to make every aspect of the game engaging. You know, we just want to make a good game is engaging. You know, it kind of grabs a hold of you and it takes you on a journey for X amount of hours. So, like, I think lore and story and everything having like a background and a history to it, you know, adds to the engagement levels. If you look at like Game of Thrones or Star Wars, you know, these are worlds, fully realized universes that have depth and history, and it just makes for it a more interesting entertainment experience, you know. So we tend so it's a necessity. You know, you have to do it if you want to make something good and entertaining and engaging. Secondly, it's been fun because it's kind of a perfect opportunity because it's a brand that has a lot of meaning to people, but it didn't have a lot of story. You know, there wasn't, so we were able to kind of look at it as a whole and be like, not so much the specific story of the original Doom, of the Marine and all that stuff, which is great. I mean, I don't want to say too much, but we're certainly respectful of that storyline in Doom Eternal. But we could look at it in 2016 as a whole and say, what does the brand mean to people at a high level? This super badass, take, you know, one man against the armies of hell. You know, that guy's pretty badass. So so how do we spin that and make that, you know, an interesting and somewhat believable storyline, you know, while still being like completely comic book and crazy.
Yeah.
So we arrived at the story of the Doom Slayer and stuff, and in Eternal we're going to answer a lot of questions. Is it the same Doom guy? All those things. So it's been very fun and honestly kind of easy to work with because you could do anything, and the brand itself is so strong and fun that it's just been a blast turning him into this character that everybody loves, reintroducing him to a whole new generation of fans.
Mm-hmm. One question I have is, unfortunately my dad hasn't been able to make it yet. I don't know if he's getting a message, but one question he had for you guys is, he comes from an entire different generation of gamers. We're talking the Atari generation moving up. What's it been like designing the game?
That's our generation.
I'm
I'm pretty old, dude.
So my question is, what's it been like trying to keep the controls and the gameplay experience intuitive enough for them, while also bringing in your more modernized, fast-paced shooting crowd?
I mean, I think we've probably, and particularly with Doom Eternal, we were actually just talking about this. I think ensuring that the game is demanding enough of modern day players is something we're actually, if you know, if you were to draw a spectrum of kind of where you could land on that, we're definitely aiming more towards modern players. You know, I mean, like whether it's keyboard and mouse or gamepad, players these days, they've particularly the younger players, they've grown up playing like a lot of Fortnite and a lot of PUBG and games that push you and demand a lot of you. He always raises his son as an example and brings in videos of how he plays Fortnite, and it's like, I mean, literally we sit around and just like,
How does he do that?
my God,
And,
like,
and he's 8, you know.
yeah, and he's 8, and you can't, like, you have to. That is the standard. I mean, that is what a player expects. You know, that level of challenge, that level of tools that you know, Hugo always says mastery, and that shouldn't be a scary term. I think is like, it shouldn't just, you know, whether somebody believes they have good Twitch skills or not. The game will take you through a process of learning how to play it and learning how to be good at it. And when we say, you know, you're going to master the tools and master the power fantasy, the fun of the experience is going through that process, learning those guns, learning the weak points, learning the way the mechanics work, learning how to dash at the right time. And, you know, it's like, that process is the fun, and it does challenge you. And if we don't challenge the player, we're going to get big shoulder shrugs, like, I don't know, it was okay, it was kind of boring.
But the difficulty settings go a long way too.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so like we're working hard on that right now. You know, just making sure that the metas don't change. You know, the things you need to do in Flame Belch and aggressively manage your resources and move and all that stuff, that stays the same. But I think as you go down in difficulty, you'll be allowed to make a few more mistakes, and we won't ask you to process so many things at once. You know, on Ultraviolence, there are a lot more guys throwing fastballs at you and throwing heavy shots, with a lot more enemies attacking you at once. So you have to basically...
And the fastballs hurt. You
Yeah.
can't.
Per
gotta
second,
dodge 'em.
you know, we're asking you to do X amount of make X amount of decisions per second, you know, or per minute, whatever you want to judge that. And then, and we're letting you make far fewer mistakes, you know, per minute and or second. And then, if you go down in difficulty, you'll be making fewer decisions, you know, per second, and you'll be allowed to make more mistakes. So.
Yeah.
But the mechanics don't change.
But the mechanics will not change, you know. So that's where we make it accessible to people. But it's got to be, I think, with our game, or a game like ours, or a studio like ours, you know, we don't. It's not a looter shooter. Like with looter shooters, like the difficulty can go down because the amount of content you're giving to the player, the drip of content goes way up. So it's like, well, I'll mow through these guys fast if I'm of the right level and I've got the right gun. But I also want to be getting guns like every 2 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
As your content goes down, everything has to have more meaning in the game, and the challenge of the game has to go up, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's the type of game we make, and we love those games. So, and we love those other games too. We're not saying they're bad at all,
I think
obviously.
kind of like what y'all were saying too is like, it's kind of weird how the world is like kind of globally switched on gaming. Because like, even whenever, you know, I'm 32, so even whenever I was younger, I mean, you know, there were gamers or whatever else, but still, like, my dad would get pissed off if I stayed inside too long. It's like, go outside, work, you come inside, play your video game for like an hour. And I'm like, okay, but, you know, now it's just like the Fortnite World Cup just happened, and I mean, it was like hundreds of thousands of people go to a stadium to watch these guys play. And it's like what you said about your son. It's like, I think now gamers are like, I feel like gamers now are on like a completely different level than what I was whenever I was like 8.
Yeah. It's a puzzle, like a game. I have in-laws who think I let my son play too many video games, and I played too many video games as a kid, and they are puzzles. They are 3-dimensional puzzles,
Yeah.
and I absolutely think they are a great exercise for your brain. Like, I don't agree that it's like not productive. It actually, I think, watch anybody's 8-year-old play Fortnite, or my son. He is processing information at like a ridiculous rate.
Yeah.
He's making decisions. He's solving these dynamic puzzles that are changing and evolving constantly. The right weapon in the right situation to build at the right moment. You're gonna tell me he's not exercising some part of his brain? Like, it's absolutely true. So, yeah, I think it's those events, those esports. It's the Puzzle Olympics.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it is.
Well, and off what y'all were talking about earlier as well, you know, at the panel. So battle mode is a big thing that I'm like really excited about. Battle mode is going to be very new and fresh. I think from what I saw, there's going to be like 6 maps available now,
At launch.
At launch. So as we were going through this demo, I've played the demo twice. I played it here and I played it at E3, and I noticed that there was some really dynamic, like kind of level designs. So did y'all line that level design out in the perspective of using some of those levels in the battle mode, or do the battle mode maps, are they like something completely different?
The battle mode maps they stand on their own. They're totally
Okay.
unique.
Okay.
Now, obviously, these two things are. I mean, battle mode is built with all of the campaign fundamentals in
Yeah.
place. So, from a size and kind of feel of the map, it's very much like a Doom combat arena that you would find in campaign. But they are specifically made for battle mode. We use the visual themes, obviously, but when the design team is designing a battle mode arena, it is specially designed for battle mode, and actually some of them we didn't really show this, but some of them have some really cool things happening. Some kind of dynamic elements where
Cool.
part of the map might have like a lava floor or fire, and as you play through the different rounds, the map kind of changes a bit, and so you kind of have to change your strategy or where you can go on the map, how you corner the Slayer changes if you're playing as the demon. So there's actually a whole side just to the level design of battle arena maps that is really again, it's all about making it really compelling, really
Yeah.
engaging, giving the players just constant processes to think through. So
So you're basically saying that like when y'all play this at the office, it's like total competitive mode, right? Like,
Oh yeah, it's super competitive. It's really, really competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really deep.
Awesome.
It's a deep, strategic, smart game. It's awesome.
What's the biggest bet you've placed at the competitive level at work?
Oh,
There's
we
gotta be
actually-
some betting.
We haven't done that
we
yet.
don't bet.
Yeah.
Really?
That's actually surprising. Yeah, I mean, I've not even really thought about
Look,
it.
now you put an idea in his head. He's looking
Right.
back, he's like,
Yeah.
People get angry enough. Like I've personally like broken one controller and almost broken probably 50 others, just playing and screaming. I can't imagine if I had money on the line. It'd be
Oh, there's
ridiculous.
always challenges
You know, you
can
can do like
for
a
each other,
steak
though, right?
and some beer. Something
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
I don't know. I usually don't need much more to make it
Got you.
than bragging rights.
Yeah.
So when you guys line out a level, do you do the typical development thing where you kind of wireframe it out and you have no texture kind of thing to build out the level itself first, or do you guys kind of concept it out and build it from there?
What's the question?
So most video game development, like if you look at something like Assassin's Creed, I know we're talking apples and oranges here, but they go with a wireframe and no textures, and they kind of build out the level and say, is this fun, before we bother putting any more energy into this?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys build that way, or do you design the level first? What's the
We
formula?
design the mission first. So like, there's got to be like a high level, kind of like where am I going and what am I doing and why am I doing it. So you could say it's story, but we don't. Sure, it's story.
It's motivation.
Motivation, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there we try to establish like what would be an interesting place to go to. What's an idea that would make a level designer's job easier, So we come up with that. We settle on that. We have like a mission design doc. Then the level designer takes them, and in that is outlined, broad stroke objectives, things. This is where I go, why I go there, and what I do there. And certainly we try to map out what we call like a 3-act visual structure. So like it begins in one place, the middle, has a second act, and then a third act. They go somewhere else. So that way the map feels like it's taking you on a journey. In the Mars core map that you guys are playing for the demo, for example, I start on Phobos, I end up then in space on chunks of an exploded Mars, and then I end up in the core of Mars. So it's a good example of that. We have our sort of combat tools that the players have, like what AI do they have available, like in this map in Mars core, they've got tentacles and different things that we've introduced to the player, what puzzle mechanics are available. And then from there you try to map it out and just pace it out. Like you don't want to have too massive, we know that we've got these traversal mechanics, so we've got like puzzle mechanics
Mm-hmm.
in the game. We've got what we call intermediate,
Ambient, intermediate combat.
yeah, intermediate combat space, incidental. I always forget that word. Incidental combat spaces, which are the spaces between arenas, and then we've got our skate parks, the mega arena sections. So we just try to take those basic puzzle pieces and spread them out in a way that creates for a nice, well-paced experience. And then we're refining it throughout. Like, hey, you know, push me a little more here, or like, it's getting a little boring here. Maybe we introduce some combat puzzle stuff or an actual real puzzle using some of our simple mechanics like punch blocks and stuff. So, yeah, I think what's critical though is that you start with a good idea. You know, like the Morris Core one is a good one. You know. A good example of that, and I think that makes everybody's life a lot easier.
And we do, I mean, what you talked about, just specifically to answer that question, almost the entire time that we're going through the process that he's talking about, it's all gray box. So, yeah, the designers are using, you know, generally as simple a geometry as they can to both get the idea out and communicate some visual place a bit, and then just it goes once you kind of have that, it goes to the concept team, and they'll do paint overs and kind of make it visually like a good visual key for the environment artists, and then the environments kind of like flock to it like bees, and it just all of a sudden becomes like amazing.
We gotta. It's tricky too, you know, like in that block out phase where you want to keep it, you know, gray box and loose, because you got to make sure you set up your set pieces and your vistas, and those are like placed correctly. You also want to make sure that you've got just enough puzzles and mazes and wraparounds, and not too many that I become frustratingly lost, but just enough. You know, what's the flow of the map? Everything. It's much easier to figure those things out when it's in gray box.
Hey guys, sorry, we have about 5 more minutes.
Okay. Well, I'll ask a different kind of question here, but I think it's more appropriate, because I'm really curious to know, since Tim Willits, of course, is leaving id Software, and many of us fans, of course, don't know him personally, but I've known about him for years. Always respected him as a level designer, so and someone who came from the mod community originally. So I just wanted to ask both of you, since he is leaving, like, what does he mean to you, and what will his legacy mean to you going forward at id Software?
Yeah, I mean, I've known Tim a long time. I even before I started at id, I've been at id almost 20 years, and worked with them going back to like the QuakeCon mission pack days. I was their producer at Activision, so I've known Tim a long time, and really respect what he brought to id as a designer. It's like somebody you've worked with for 23 years. So
Yeah.
really respect what he's done as a designer, and we've kind of been on separate paths as we've done the Doom stuff. You know, he's taken the reins on Rage 2 and Quake Champions. So I mean, I think I've again really respected what he's done, and I know he's going to be successful in whatever he does. He's a good designer, and is going to do great.
Oh, same. I mean, Marty has a far longer working relationship with him than I do. I came at the start of June 2016, and that project was run by Marty, so he was working on the Quake Champion stuff and the Rage stuff, so I don't really have a working relationship with him, other than he's awesome, and he's Tim Willits, and he's participated in some amazing games, you know, going back to Quake and those games, and I loved Rage 1. You know, I played the shit out of that game, and so I'm playing actually Quake 2 single player right now at home, and
Great fucking game.
yeah, it's fucking awesome. So like, you know, just a tremendous legacy, and as he said, I'm sure whatever Tim does next, it's going to be equally successful.
I mean, probably the best indicators. My favorite game until we made Doom 2016 was Quake 3. I mean, like, I was at Quake 3 Arena. I mean, the amount of time that I've spent playing Quake 3 Arena, and not just because I worked on it. It's just I love it. So I mean, he was the lead designer on that. So have a lot of respect for that, and just it'll be cool to see what he does next.
Same. That metal box still sits on my shelf.
Yeah. Oh, I've got a few of those in my attic that are still in plastic.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, to close it out, I know we're at the very end of it. He actually has a question for you guys with the battle mode pertaining to it. Which character or demon, rather, do you prefer playing as, just on the entertainment value alone?
You want to go first?
Right now, probably the Archvile, he's the most strategic. You know, he's kind of an advanced demon. Like the Revenant is awesome. They're all awesome, but
really are.
he doesn't have he's not great with his direct attacks. He doesn't have a great offense, but he's a fantastic support demon, and it's fun to. It's a bit of a requires a little bit more thinking and teamwork, strategy and teamwork. So if I am working with, let's say, a Mancubus teammate, and we coordinate just enough, and I kind of act as his support, so he's the anchor and I'm the support demon, while the Mancubus occupies the Slayer with his, with his guns and his flamethrowers and stuff. I can throw down my Lake of Fire, so he does the thing where he can burn wherever, he could place it down wherever he wants.
Yeah.
He could throw up a firewall, to protect himself, and also kind of box in the Slayer sometimes. And he can teleport, so he can do some really cool things that, if used in support with another demon, it's really, really effective. But what I find so interesting about him is if you play him wrong, you'll get completely slaughtered. So, which is a sign of a well-balanced game,
Yeah.
So he's currently my favorite.
We've answered this question a couple times. I typically say the Revenant, I think, because he's so agile. I love that about him, and he just has some really cool moments of like the way that you can use his jetpack and then his dash gives you this kind of capability to go up and then come around a guy and then use the rocket barrage, and you just get this when you press the rocket barrage, he kind of locks in place even if you're in the air, but you can still aim, and then it just goes like this really cool feeling. I don't know, you feel like an Apache helicopter or something like that. So I really like that. I will say visually speaking, and I think as things, the Marauder was kind of the last demon to really make it into the game.
Yeah.
So I've spent less time with him, but the way he's coming together is going to be really, really cool. So that's going to change, and honestly, they're all so fun. It's really cool because I'm really excited about it because it's a totally different take on the feel of Doom. It's perfectly Doom, and everything works just as you would expect, and there's a familiarity to it. But it just, as we talk about, you play games to kind of think and make choices and have that challenge, and the fact that we now have this cast of characters in our game that you get to bounce between and choose your favorite and try different strategies, and they behave so differently. The Slayer's the Slayer. I mean, he's everything. There's nothing like being the Slayer, but to have these added elements into the mix, it's so fucking cool. And honestly, the Slayer is an exhausting experience. Like when you're playing it in battle mode, it's oh my god, it is so intense. So to play a few games as a Slayer and then be like, I gotta play as the Pain Elemental, and you're kind of cruising around the top and launching, and it's awesome. It's really, really
You said
fun.
you like the Revenant. Were you the one that decided to do the Doot skin or whatever?
I was part of that decision for sure.
All right,
It's going to be cool.
Yeah, we really appreciate the time very much. We're very excited. The game launches November 22nd for all platforms. Google Stadia as well, correct?
Yeah, that's what we're shooting for.
Awesome,
Yeah.
Awesome. Very excited. Well, thank you guys so much for your time today.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.